Hey everyone, and welcome to Vue.jsTalks number 21. Tonight, we're taking a break from framework releases and migration pain to explore something even more dangerous: human communication and the human brain. Our first talk, Speaking Business, looks at how developers can turn estimates, risks, and technical trade-offs into information that clients and product teams can actually use, without a 20-minute monologue about the build pipeline. Our second talk, Reach for the Strip, explores cognitive bias in the age of AI. Why humans and AI can sound extremely confident while being completely wrong. There'll even be a live optical illusion to prove it. So tonight is really about one question: how do we make good decisions when information is complicated and our brains are not always helping? Keep your questions ready, especially the ones you're completely certain about. Enjoy the talks.
Have a bit of introduction on why this talk I felt is necessary. So oftentimes when I communicate with developers, we might have I'm the person who's connecting directly to management or whoever I'm already. Oftentimes I'm doing a role of translator from a technical language to a more customer-facing language, and oftentimes I'm very necessary in that position. I do not want to be very necessary. I want to be less necessary. So I'm trying to share this knowledge. So maybe my necessity would be less. Because of that, I was also quite often asked to have some kind of video like that, where I explain how things should be structured, how to explain to different departments, to a management, your staff, so that it is more successful and everyone is more happy about this communication and it's more effective. So I won't cover all topic. The talk is pretty small, so I would cover only small bites that I would consider most important for success of communication. So I will start from first kind of showcasing worldviews of developer and project manager, and how these worldviews are different and what we have to account for. Then I would speak about documentation and primarily about estimates. I think estimates are the most important piece of documentation for this best communication you can have. And the third point would be about more general ideas about what can make communication successful. And there we'll also speak a bit about psychology, but very little, teeny bit. Okay, and we can get started. So first, who is it for? So it is for developers who talk with people who don't have full context. So managers, designers, QA, etc. With your peers, with developers who work on the same project, it is generally way easier because everyone is aware of everything and you can oftentimes be interchangeable. But with different departments, it's not as easy, and this is main focus of mine. So here worth noting is sometimes I hear that communication is something you have to be born with, or it's not possible, it is not fixable. But from my perspective, it is the same as any kind of technique, any kind of muscle. You can be very inept, and this is bad starting point, but then you can train, and at some point you become very good at it, regardless of where you start with. So it is a skill you can build with time, for sure, and I will help you do so, hopefully. So let's start with a perspective of a developer. Probably, guys, you're very aware of what this looks like. But the developer sees the task, sees some kind of idea, generally in a sense of requirements, in the sense of file structure, maybe GitHub diffs, maybe something like a web page. So it is also a lot of context, oftentimes, to understand what project is about. And this is very much not the same for a project manager or oftentimes a lead who has a lot of developers. They might have a vision for high level of a project on technical side, but that's about it. And what someone like a project manager would look more about is timings. So let's say this effort to implement some sort of payment, how much would it take? So like, is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? Where we can plan it so that it is properly implemented. What risks exist? So these are both like time risks. Is it like sure 1 month, or is it like maybe 2 months, or maybe 3 months? This is a matter of concern. Blockers, so which task goes under which one, and so we have to structure and prioritize them correctly so that all tasks can be so that we don't have a case where, let's say, there is one small blocker and team has nothing to do. This is very bad. And the criticality. And criticality is again pretty much the same thing as blockers. So let's say you have one small issue that affecting everything else, you have to move it, or you cannot do anything meaningful, you cannot release. So there is area of overlap between, let's say, developer and project manager, where you want to achieve the good communication. So generally, you do not want to share too much information, and you want to share as little information as possible. So, but you also want to share enough information, and we'll try to do this. So how to share enough information, but at the same time, as little as possible. And the very good tool for that, I feel, are estimates, and you can disagree with me when we get to questions, but I'll talk about estimates a bit. So what estimates consist of? The parts that are very, very important for this estimate, for this effort of communication. So first thing is description and requirement. And there I want also to shape your attention to the point that you have to have an ability to push back on this. So like, it is very problematic if requirements just come to you and then you are stuck with them. This is a very problematic part, because oftentimes what happens with requirements, and they're either unclear, they're not full, or they're just crazy and incorrect and do not fit. So it is very important to set up communication in a way that allows you to push back to whoever gave you these requirements. And this is also often what I see with developers, is that they consider it as like a word of God, and this has to be as per requirements, closely done, and they're happy with the results. But no, if it doesn't fit your picture, if it doesn't bring good result, you have to push back and set up this channel of communication in a way that these requirements are of good quality for the future. Second is about criticality. Here again, critical and critical, I would consider like two sets. So critical is like a blocker, especially within a scope. Non-critical is non-blocker. Pretty straightforward. Within a talk, it allows you to focus on things that are important for you. Same scope kind of narrows down your attention as a project manager, as a developer as well. So you don't maybe do, you might have some fun stuff you want to do, but you have some critical things with current scope, and you have to handle this first because this is important for the project. Another important thing is time. And it's also super important in a sense, how much time do we want to spend communicating about this issue? So what I sometimes had when we have like 1 hour task, but it is not clear for me it's 1 hour task. I'm thinking like maybe it's something important, I don't know. Maybe it's like a big task. And then we're spending like 20 minutes discussing it. It's completely wasted time. Instead, we can just do it and iterate and see whether it's needed or not very easily. So time is meaningful here. Another one is risks. This is here I would only consider the risk for estimate. So like whether estimate has a potential to blow out or not. There are other areas of risk, but these I would consider part of requirements, or maybe like initial investigation before the task is even presented. So Another one is progress. Again, here it should be visible to whether it is started, where it's set, do you require like some feedback and stuff like that. And status is kind of another indication of where progress is. And with status, it is also very easy for a project manager to just go like jump here and do some filtering and see like, okay, like for this scope, we have like 5 tasks to go and we have 1 week, so we are looking good. So kind of a sorting convenience. And there is a way to automate this. Every tool out there allows for automation, like Jira. Here I'm presenting Notion, but Linear, whatever, everything has tools to automate this, make it simpler for developers, so they don't have to do it all manually. Okay, so for this structure is kind of flexible. Depending on your team, you can tweak it for yourself. Like, let's say if you have a lot of calls, you can skip most of it. It's not necessary. You discuss it and everything here. But from my perspective, it is very meaningful. It is also like, let's say if you are using this structure and providing this structure from a developer's perspective, it makes your lead or like project manager, it would make it very happy. So because if they don't have the structures themselves, and if they don't have to support it, it will make them very happy. One more important thing about estimates is it is very important to have them in a tip-top shape. So you have to support them. I would recommend a baseline once in a week, some kind of call or some kind of support session for this, so that they have to be actual. If they're not actual, they lose trust, and after losing trust, they're kind of useless. No one goes there. It just works, happens in parallel state, or it is similar to when your table is full of garbage. You just unhappy with your table, and you try to everything kind of disappears. You don't see all this stuff, so it loses point. And I would also recommend for all calls which require context to bring up this estimate, this document. And again, here my concern is that oftentimes people don't tell you they don't have context. They will sit on call, they would listen to you, they will try maybe very hard on that, but they don't have some context, and they might have no idea what you're speaking about. And this is problematic. And if the person is very diligent, they will stop you, tell you like, stop, I don't have context, please tell me context. And this is just paying by time. But if they continue listening to you without context, then it is a problem. And it is like a void area, no one's responsibility. So I think it's good to take responsibility for that and just provide some kind of agenda, provide some kind of document that everyone can follow and not have to ask about it. So here I have a couple of examples on what should you tell when asked on estimate on the spot, because that sometimes happens. Like, how many story points do you think we have to do here? And here I'd like to be a bit careful. It's better to be careful here than say something that is very, very confident looking. So let's say you have no knowledge. So here I think 2 safe ideas is to point to similar items you did, if you did it. And if not, you just suggest investigating and say nothing, say no numbers. No, maybe, no, nothing. It's the most safe one. Cases where I estimated something out of my head, beaten me, and not recommending. If you have some knowledge, here you have to kind of be explicit about it. So I don't know for sure. Maybe we have to look it up to be sure. But from my first glance, looks like that. So this is something. And very good knowledge. Again, you may skip a word, maybe. You are sure this will take this time. You did it before, maybe a couple of weeks ago, same thing. So you are very sure. And again, this allows a clear idea to a project manager that okay, this will take this time, we can be sure about it. So like do a bit of delay, maybe like half a week after this feature is complete, and then it's good to go. So this is a loaded topic. Maybe we have some questions on the estimates already, and I will move to a next topic. Some questions, please. Sergey, yes, please. Go ahead.
First of all, glad to see you guys. The question is how to handle the non-technical guys challenging your estimates, because we all live in the real world and this happens one time or another.
Sure. Can you elaborate a bit of context? Because
when you
context
say something, okay, there is some feature, the manager asks you for an estimation, you're pretty confident. You say, for example, it's two days, and the manager asks, why so long? Why it's not 2 hours? Because I talked to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told me that it could be done in 2 hours, for example.
Okay. Yeah, that's a bit of tricky one. This I would consider. What I'm talking about mostly is about, I would say, like high trust team. So where PM is confident you are doing your job well, and you're confident, let's say, PM will do your job well. But here the problem is that like PM is going and telling you, okay, you are doing your job not well, so I'm doing your job better than you. And this is tricky because so I think
aren't this a common theme right now with especially with the introduction of AI? Every manager thinks that they actually know better how to do technical things than the actual developers, and the actual developers' work is largely neglected these days in the sense that AI can replace it. That's the whole theme that is propagating through the many teams.
Yeah, but so I would say here there might be a grain of truth in that. So it is important to check with them. Why do they think this way? So have just like a neutral interview. Try to be as neutral as possible, because I see it might be infuriating when you hear something like this. You say 2 days and it's 2 hours. Like, no, I'm not doing it in 2 hours. But apart from that, I think just keeping, if your investigation is correct, it's 2 days. Just keeping it as 2 days is a correct approach here, I believe. Andrew, you have something to say?
Yeah, it has even like more general question, maybe a bit more complex in the sense that it's not, in my experience, sometimes it's not even a question of whether you are being questioned at all as a developer about the estimates. It's something that is inferred on you, especially in the really large organizations where the estimates are being propagated and defined by with the stakeholders. Many developers don't even have access to stakeholders to make any influence, and the conversation is never started at the lower level of the implementation. It started on the level of, I want this at this specific date because I want to look good on the specific meeting on the top, right? And you need to implement this, and I don't care like how you will do it. You have 2 days or 2 hours, right? So it's a bit. And this is actually defined by the structure, because if you have 50 people in the organization, that's one conversation. But if you have 10,000, that's like a completely different scale in a sense of sparse complexity, where people are not communicating with each other, where like this whole trust circle is broken, right? Because literally people don't know each other even to make these judgments. The person who implementing things sitting in another country, like is 10,000 kilometers away from a person who actually promised this estimate.
Yeah, I see your point. With bigger companies, it definitely could be more challenging, especially if there is some power struggle or some politics involved. Like, there's just could be problematic. I'm thinking of a pretty good scenario where you have a trust and you have maybe a good reach as a developer to communication.
That can be achieved in a small group, I agree. But in the big groups, that becomes quite challenging in general.
Sure.
Can we find a solution to just saying to this person, okay, sorry, mate, but you're using the old AI model. I have a newer one. That's why we need 2 days instead of 2 hours.
Actually, I will dedicate part of my talk directly to this bias.
Okay.
And you have to use this prompt, right? Like Pago is always right.
Yeah. And you need to install it on your director's machine. Create a proxy.
Sounds great. Okay, any more questions? Okay, so I think we are good with estimates then. And Pago, am I good with time or should I speed up a bit?
I think we are good at time.
Okay.
It's still fine.
I'll try to make it more fun. Then, okay, so second tango is about general communication tricks. And I want to start with small talk because when I started working as a developer, I kind of was confused why this thing exists. I want to do tasks. I want to do some coding. I want to speak about project. Why do I have to speak about weather? It makes no sense to me. Or some trying attempt jokes that never work seemingly. Why should I do this? So right now I see that it is a very important technical part because a very important part of communication is that everyone feels good and everyone feels neutral. So if people are too excited or they may be too sad, detached, then it's a problem. Like your words just won't reach. You can have the best explanation in the world, the best presentation, your words be like this. No hitting the target at all. So what small talks allows you to do is allows you to kind of bring people closer to this baseline, and also it allows for a context switch. This is very important for higher manager, so like director, CTO, leads. What they sometimes have is that they jump across many tasks at one time. So they might have like a call before you that might be like 1 hour call about security, and then we're speaking about like some button covering or something like that. And these are completely different tasks, and their context might be still on this call. They have 1 minute to rest. It's not enough for a switch. So very necessary to have this time for a context switch, and very necessary to have a bit of information going so that the new context is established and they understand like, okay, we're speaking about button covers, not security anymore. And the third point of small talk is that people are great. It is great to talk with your colleagues in general, even if you have a context, even if you feel okay. It brings motivation. It brings you basically your work becomes more interesting. So I think small talk is a great thing. Another point from my side is working on definitions. Again, in a lot of teams, I'm noticing that terms are not defined properly. So done could mean so many different things across projects. So I have some examples, not sure how relevant this would be. So like, let's say developer could say done. And I had cases where developer saying done would mean, okay, it is done on my local PC. It's not pushed. So it's like completely useless for everyone else, but technically done. But to business, the most important definition of done, I think it's like usable in some way, or at least spread to the team. I would say something like it's on the staging, or it's maybe even ready for prod, something like that. Same for broken. Like, does it mean there is some bugs? Maybe there is some error in console, or nothing works. We have to be sure about it before we communicate. Same for fixed. Fixed, is it like on your local device or something, or you can use it? And same for blocked. And very important why it is good to define this prematurely is that you have, after you define it, your communication speeds up insanely. So like, you know what done means, done on staging, like, or done as a developer branch, which is source of truth. So you agreed on source of truth, you agreed on done. In one word, you can define where is the status of some feature. That's very good. And this is the same thing pretty much. We are pretty well done. I would consider myself rare at this point. Well, one more point about done is also ownership and responsibility. So here I'd like to do a bit of a drawing. I actually have it already, but I'll wipe it. You didn't see it, okay? So here, let's say this is your responsibility. So you're a developer. This is your main area of responsibility. And you say, like, let's say this is what you did. This is like your piece of things, but actual feature looks like this. Okay, it's not like fully in your responsibility. And there are some loose ends, and you can be like, okay, it is done. Well, I would say more healthy idea is to consider it not done and have a bit of some actions for these areas. So that might be a design section. That might be some kind of infrastructure. That might be QA, okay? And if you are responsible for the task, and as a front end, we are oftentimes responsible for a task in a significant way, you have to set up communication in a way that allows you to influence these things. And I would also recommend you to not have all of this in your head, to have some kind of notification to yourself. So one way of notification is using the estimates. So just description within them or something like that, or within statuses, you can note to myself, okay, this is maybe on QA side right now. I don't have to worry about it. Another thing I'm doing very often is calendar notifications. So like, let's say you have to confirm with QA they did their part. You can make a notification, like, let's say in 2 days for yourself to ping them again, or you can just automate this ping. So, but either way, you have to like, yeah, I agree. Yeah. And when you build this communication, what happens is that from your area of responsibility, you can actually affect the full team. You have a long reach, and this reach becomes trustworthy because you have like rails to send them like requirements or feedback or something else, and you have rails that drive back to you their responses, and you both trust these rails because these rails are already functioning for a big time. But when you establish it, it is very chaotic. It is very like you're trying different approaches and you are setting up on the one that works. Okay, back to presentation. Okay, I think we covered everything I wanted to say here. Okay, and the last point from my side is your actions are important. So whatever you're doing, you may think, okay, this is small thing, this doesn't make impact. Actually, it does. So like, again, as like a lead, as a manager, in many cases, it is very important for me to hear any kind of initiative, and it is very important also to a project. So if you see some void between, like, let's say there is maybe some communication void here, or there are some areas that are unclear, that are no one's land, but you see some value, you can for sure influence this. And the problematic part is not that your idea is bad in itself oftentimes, but maybe a presentation is bad, or this channel is not established. So maybe there is some infrastructure missing for you to get this idea a green light. So, and with that, I'm good, I guess. I told everything I wanted. Maybe you have some questions on the second part. And if you have ideas on the first part, that's also welcome.
I don't see any questions in the chat and the rising hands, but we already had a pretty good conversation during the talk. So thanks, Yauheni. That was really nice to hear a lot of thoughts about that. So probably I do believe it will be helpful for everyone who have struggled with some issues with explaining stuff.
Hope so.
Yeah. So thanks again. And I have to grab the screen for now. Okay. So yeah, thanks again. And let's move on to our next speaker, which is Andrei Bogdanov. Andrei is not the first time on our Vue.js talks and always with great topics. And I'm already excited to listen to this one as well. So Andrei is architect at the VF Corporation. He's browser performance nerd, functional CSS evangelist, Node.js enjoyer, and strumming chords when not coding. That's the hobby. So hi, Andrei. Nice to see you again there, and I'm passing the mic to you.
Hi, guys. Yeah, great to be here and great to talk today on a specific topic. And I think that Yauheni talk was a really nice segue into what I will be covering today. But I will try to go a bit deeper on explaining on the cases why sometimes these things doesn't work, right? Or like what the kind of fundamental obstacles we can have in implementing these suggestions, right? And not only those, right? So I hope that my talk will also help you understand it from a fundamental level from yourself, right? And let me maybe start sharing my screen. One sec. Okay, please tell me if you see the presentation. Great. So yeah, like my talk will be called "Reach for the Street," right? And in a couple of seconds, you will actually understand what this means. This is a specific action that you can do, and let's maybe let's start from a couple of words about myself. Pavel already told that I'm working as a principal front-end engineer in VF Corp, mainly responsible for architecture of the client side, and I try to oversee many teams doing exactly what was suggested before by Yauheni, by building those connections between teams, between different stakeholders. The whole organization is quite big. On a daily basis, I communicate with around like 100 different actors in delivery, trying to kind of wire the wires together, and also participating a lot still in actual development. So I'm trying to kind of architect many aspects of the application myself and review what people actually write in pull requests. So on a daily basis, I view around 30 to 40 pull requests from different people, and this is kind of an ongoing process for several years now. So I guess like till now, I already looked at maybe around 10 to 20,000 pull requests, and that actually made me think a lot about like mistakes that people do, and try to see several patterns that people are doing over and over again. And yeah, that's actually was one of the bases for today's talk. Another thing that I wanted to mention to kind of provide some background behind the credibility of the things that I'll be explaining today. I'm not only the front-end developer, right? I also have a degree in social psychology. This is another of my passion, right? My higher education is in social psychology. I run several researches on cognitive development, on the actual addictive behaviors and yeah, like on the background, although like it's not my main like source of income these days, but I always was passionate about the topic of how humans think and how they actually make decisions. So the information that I will share with you was actually gathered through several years of reading, research, and thinking about this topic, which is quite interesting in itself and can be viewed from many different angles. Not only from a purely psychological point, but also from physiological point, and I'll try to cover those things as well. So to start out, let me just go to the next slide. And the question is, which square here is brighter? And what is the color difference between those squares? If you read my article that I posted on LinkedIn before this talk, you probably already know the answer. But if you didn't, I genuinely ask you to vote in the chat to try to answer which square is actually brighter. Is the B brighter than A, in your opinion? And try to just give a quick response. It's quite simple, yeah. Nice. Who has different ideas about it? Come on, guys, try to participate. Okay, depends on perspective. B. Who else would like to vote? Okay, I guess let me go to the next slide and you'll see, right? So the answer of they are the same is actually correct. And it's actually not straightforward, right? So if I can even take the color picker for you. 1 second. And if you see, this is actually the same, exactly the same color all over there, right? So it's exactly the same. And what does it prove, right? For many people, when they look at such scenes, that they usually say like, so what, right? They look the same, but what does it change in my perception, right? So I may be making a small mistake. I may be fooled by some stuff, right? So they don't try to get it deeper, and it doesn't create a fundamental question in their brain, like, what is even happening? Like, why I perceive those colors differently, and when the strip appears, it changes. It literally changes in my perception. It's not even fixed, right? So if I remove the strip again, the illusion disappears. So or the illusion appears again. It's not that something is actually being fixed once you receive the information that you are being fooled. You're falling on the same trap over and over and over again, right? And to me, this is like, at some point, it sparked like a really important question that I started to research. And yeah, let's just try to get to the bottom of this, try to understand what's even going on. So yeah, as I said, like they're identical, they're exactly the same color, and they actually creates this kind of internal confidence. Usually, when people like, maybe I'm not on this example, but if I'm taking something that I actually know pretty well, I placed in a different conditions, I'm looking at the stuff, I'm not prepared, and I just expressed my confidence, and I stopped researching. I'm not doing the second round of iteration. I trust myself, right? I trust my feelings, I trust my perception, and that's the exact reason why like clubs around like flat earth appear, and that sort of organizations, right? And people say like, I trust my vision, I see that the earth is flat, so it's flat, right? So I don't want to kind of research. I don't want to kind of trust another information. I trust my feelings. And this can be sometimes really, really dangerous in terms of behavior, right? And that's exactly example of why. But we will get even deeper than to this. So yeah, like no one actually even like trying to apply this strip of same color to those two squares, because they're confident that the color is the same. Why should you check, right? And this is actually stops your critical thinking from even kicking in the process. why it's going like this, right? We have specific names for these things in social economics, in psychology, and social dynamics. It's called cognitive biases and also logical fallacies. Those are actually two different things. Many people try to mix them together because they're quite interconnected, I would say, right? But I would like to really work on the terminology so we would all be on the same page in understanding those terms, because they will be used throughout the presentation quite a lot. So the cognitive bias is actually the defect in judgment, right? You're creating your brain creates specific judgment. It's false, right? And it's systematic. As I said, like, it's not something that you choose to do. It's something that happens because of how your brain works. And a bit later on this specific function on the next slide. But about the logical fallacies is a defect of argument structure, right? So you create some argument, but you make specific errors in your overall reasoning, right? So we'll also look at the examples of like strawman fallacy, false dichotomy, appeal to authority. All of those things, they kind of explain why you're making the incorrect logical assumptions out of something that you feel is quite coherent, right? You say, like, I'm working on the ladder, I'm stepping on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm getting to a specific conclusion, but the conclusion is wrong, and that's because you were working on an incorrect ladder to begin with, but you didn't notice it, you didn't analyze every step of the way, right? And we will try to kind of understand how to analyze this ladder, how to work on the right ladder. And the result of it is that in your life, and it's not only related to the coding, to what you develop, but generally, in how you perceive the world, you should have like much less of those happy coincidences or happy mistakes that is like completely random. Because many people usually attribute these things to something that, like, I didn't take enough coffee, I didn't sleep well, I was distracted, my boss is a jerk, and this type of stuff. So they try to hide these fundamental issues behind specific, really systemical and repeatable patterns. And we will try to uncover those. So that understanding those will leave you with like much less excuse on not fixing them and not analyzing them. So all of it is basically connected to the brain itself, and the brain really likes to make shortcuts. So why is it even happening? Why the brain is doing that? If we analyze the actual metabolic consumptions of the energy that your brain does in your body, it actually consumes around 20% of the overall energy, although it weighs only 2% of the mass of the body. If you think about it, this is like insane amount of energy. So even if you're not doing anything, if you're completely on the idle mode, so to say, your brain still consumes a huge amount of calories, and it has specific limits. Even if you think about like how we are being born, the humans are being born with underdeveloped brain. If you look on the cat or a dog or a chimpanzee, even how they're being born, the cat is able to walk in like 3 days or like even faster, sometimes even like in a couple of hours after they being born, right? And they already have instincts, they already have everything. But for a regular human to actually develop the brain to a fully capable capacity, sometimes you'll need to have like 25 years to actually fully kind of grow the overall structure of your brain. This is like really insane, and this is driven by the evolution. Imagine what will happen to your mother if she will be waiting like 25 years until you will be fully prepared for this world, right? To fully analyze it. So that means that the brain needs to save some energy in some specific ways, and that's actually what's happening. That's why all of those cognitive mistakes are even being produced. And it actually works fine in like 95% of cases, right? So if you take like general activity, if you compare the lifestyle of a person who lives like 3,000 years ago, the life was much more plain. Like if you compare the activity of milking cow to the activity of creating full stack application, there's probably will be quite different types of tasks, right, of different complexity. But right now, our society and the overall infrastructure and the informational field develops so fast that our brain can't keep up, right? As I said previously with a flat Earth example, previously people didn't go into space. They might not even ask such questions, and those questions might not even were like necessary so much. And the same about thinking. You know, like when people these days are exposed to ChatGPT, LLMs, and all of this AI stuff, this is uncover a really important problem that we are not even able to think ourselves. We are not able to understand how the thinking process is structured in our own brain. So how can we demand any logical activity from LLM if we can't even understand our own reasoning, right? And that suddenly becomes like really, really important. All of these questions, they lived in this 5% of bias, of illusion, of something that we didn't, that our brain was never teach, were never taught to do, right? So that's why we need to kind of train the brain so much to get into the different mode. And by mode, I actually mean specific mode that I will show on the next slide. But before that, let's just clarify those four main buckets of why we're making, or our brain is making those mistakes. First of all is too much information. As I said, society develops quite quickly. We might have tons of information to analyze, and the brain just cut it, right? The brain, and by the way, LLM do the same. If you provide like a huge amount of context for your brain will try to dissect and cut 90% of it, right? Because it's simply unbearable to consume a huge amount of information in one go. We need to simplify it, right? So the brain will just ignore most of the information provided about the problem. The second point is about not enough meaning. If you have a lot of information, but you don't understand what it means, you will ignore it. Simple as that. You won't be able to learn in like 1 hour. Sometimes when I do interviews on my work with people, they say to me something like, you know what, I don't know anything about Next, but I can learn it in 2 weeks. Not a big deal, right? After this reaction, after this response, the interview usually stops, right? Because I understand that the person doesn't know what they don't know, right? So it's not enough information to even make the judgment. But people are trying to do it really, really fast because of their brain is forcing them to do it in the really critical situation of interview. And that brings us to the third point. We need to act fast. The whole environment is provoking us to act fast. And if you will analyze all of those messages around AI and development these days, the main leitmotif of the whole infrastructure, the whole vibe is you need to work 10 times faster. No one's talking about like thinking. No one is talking about being more cautious about what you write. No one talks about like increased responsibility. Everyone talks about speed. You can deliver more. If you don't deliver 3 times more features in your project, you don't use AI in the right way, right? This kind of pressure that you will see in the literally every second post in LinkedIn. So that actually creates a really big pressure on you to move fast and to make wrong decisions at the end of the day. And the last one is what to remember. The brain works in a really tricky ways. It's trying to create the memories that you never had. Just imagine the situation like that it might be like traumatic for you. And by the way, like a huge amount of information, huge pressure is already a traumatic situation. So what your brain will do, it will try to protect you from this experience. It will try to create a really pleasant story for you to remember where you acted correctly, where you didn't make so big of a mistake. You know, like when you created a bug and it broke the whole application, it wasn't your fault. It was just someone else's fault, right? And yeah, you try to kind of create this elegant story for yourself, and the brain is helping you. This is actually a mechanism to protect your own consciousness. Because if you didn't have this mechanism, probably some people would just kill themselves, right? And that's not fun. People don't even with these mechanisms, people right now are not able to sustain this pressure. They're depressed, they're stressed and they don't know sometimes how to live. And this is like a really big problem that we need to think about. And yeah, as I said, when we try to analyze the code, when we're doing the review, all of it lives in this 5% that the biology, the evolution didn't prepare us for. And we need to adapt somehow. So switching to those systems that I was referencing before, and again, this is terms that were coined in the start of in the end of 18th century, right? So this is quite old things that were referenced in literature and in the subject, but they were mostly popularized in the 60s by people who were developing the economical models, like a social economy and cognitive economy. But they are basically telling us and trying to simplify the overall processes in our brain by dividing them into different groups. And it doesn't mean that our brain can be like divided like this, or there is specific system one in the brain that lives in a specific area of the brain. It's not about that. It's just a simple schema that allows you to understand this process better, right? So you just try to kind of understand it from this angle. So if we'll try to create this separation, and we'll say that we have a system one that has a specific fast activity, right? It's automatic, it's effortless, it's pattern matching, it's cheap. And that's really important, right? Because that's the actual ability, and this is the way for the brain to save power, right? If you think about like a person playing the guitar, right? They will want to analyze every single chord they strum, because they already did it like 1,000 or 10,000 times. It's all in their muscle memory. So the system one is fully at work. Give a person a different guitar, give them like different instruments altogether and say like play this melody, probably they won't be able to do anything, or they will fail miserably, right? Because the environment changed, the instrument changed, and they can't no longer use the system one perfectness that it provides, right? So when you walking through the street, you're talking to the phone, you can do 10 different things at once, because you've been doing this many times, and your body is already on the autopilot. But unfortunately, we can't use this autopilot in many situations on our work. We can't use this system to analyze complex information, complex PRs, complex implementations. We can't make really predictive judgment, as like a shortcut to the talk that Yauheni did. If the person is using the system one to create this type of promise and say, boss will be ready in 3 days, and using the system one, probably they might create a problem of estimation by the difference of like 10 times, because they weren't analyzing. They were giving the answer on the autopilot, right? That is based on their own previous experience. And this is like a really, really important things to differentiate. On the other hand, the system two is slow, right? But it's really deliberate. It helps you to learn the new stuff. It helps you to evaluate what you already know. And I really hope that you are using the system right now, right, to consume this new knowledge, right? So this is exactly the system that will force you to reach for the strip in our initial example. This is the system that will try to tell you to not trust from the first glance, right? And this system is actually trainable. You can train it. You can rewire your brain to not fall into these automatic behaviors, right? There is a real ways to do it. So that's exactly why we're even talking about this. Because if nothing could be changed, we probably will be fully robotic. But it's not the case. There's still hope for us. So yeah, like if I ask you what type of system you used in reviewing of your last like 5 PRs, what you will say, right? What if I'll tell you that you missed like 25 different things in your last 5 PRs, right? And that's actually what I constantly notice in my work, that people are providing this kind of a really fast approve of the things that they check. Moving forward, there was 2 people who actually tried to categorize this stuff, right? All of these biases, and this is one of my favorite infographics. It's about actually trying to kind of connect all of these dots together and build this SVG graph. Let me just try to open it in the new window. Probably let me reshare the screen. One sec. I will share the entire window of Chrome. Can you see it now? This is a really nice infographic in itself, right? It actually shows you all of those biases. It is an SVG, so all of those biases are actually clickable. So they're categorized by the points that we discussed previously, of what should you remember, too much information, and what actual bias arises from this, right? And you can actually read about all of it, and you can even provide it to your LLM, right? That's what we will be discussing next. As you can see, this is actual link, right? And I like this one, the IKEA effect. When you put a lot of much more credibility and love into the scenes that you built it yourself, right? But moving from it, sometimes people actually getting more skeptical, right? They say well, how can we define this? This is actually a concrete science. Maybe just a popular psychology that you're trying to sell us, right? And that's actually a really good question. That actually already shows that the person is trying to go much deeper into the analyzation of the information and not believe from the first go. And that's what I usually ask people to do on any topic. Don't trust what people are telling you just by the authority, right? Because that's the actual bias. So what we did in our project, we actually split those in 3 different buckets of replicability, right? So not all of those biases even have enough studies behind them, although sometimes they are being referenced in really serious works of real scientists, really serious scientists. They lack specific investigations, right? So we try to be rigorous to ourselves as well and try to make sure that if we point to something, it should have a really nice research behind it, right? Really concrete research with the specific groups of people, randomized research, and that they really follow the scientific method of discovery, right? So all those groups were formed, and this kind of made this list of 175 biases much more consumable for ourselves and for LLM as well. Because everything that I'm showing right now, at the end of the day, we applied to automated process, to the something that we provided to our internal LLM to analyze. So yeah, as I said before, you can't actually get out of it by just getting more information, right? And even this talk shouldn't make you feel that you won't be making any biases on the next day. Even people who spend their whole life analyzing those things, still making those logical mistakes, and they still fall into these traps. So it's not about feeling fully protected. It's more about building specific habits that will allow you to not make so wrong decisions. And even if you'll improve your overall decision making by, I don't know, let's take a random number of 10%, and you can ask why 10%, but still even if you'll increase by a small fraction, it already will be a move in the right direction. So it's all about small steps that you can make to make your reasoning better. So big systems, as I said, they require a lot of reasoning. They require, if we will be talking in LLM terms, they require a lot of tokens to consume, to analyze those things, because the system is hard. in the project that I work on, which is like you can call them in some way legacy, right? Although like we try to use the latest dependencies, but still the project that exists for like 4 or 5 years, and they've been built by hundreds of different individuals. They consume and they contain so much context, so much information, so much decisions that were made in the process itself, that it's not enough to just point the LLM and say to it like, do the project like with the best practices from the internet, right? It doesn't work like that. There is specific context that needs to be analyzed in a really in a really detailed way. So this is just a couple of challenges that you see on the screen that needs to be analyzed both by the person and LLM when making any change to the existing functionality. And the danger is really expensive, right? The cost of the mistake is really expensive, in the sense that by just providing like one wrong approval, you're creating a cascade of issues, right? So you just save a couple of minutes from your day, but you open the door for a new bug that goes to production, that is missed by QA, missed by other stakeholders, and actually we are having those issues in the project like almost like every day, because people try to cut on those things, and they feel like they are saving the time. That's a really big bias in itself. When you try to push something to production as fast as possible, neglecting those points, and later you will need to, first of all, you create a negative image of your brand. You create a negative picture of your project, right? That's already a hit, even if you just cut any time cost. But then you need to go through the circle of fixing that. So you need to create a new release. You need to create a smoke test. You need to do a regression test. You need to involve, at least in my experience, that's usually involving like 30 people to reevaluate the change. So you're not saving time, even though you are fooling yourself in like, we are moving fast. At the end of the day, the final result is actually worse, because you're spending more time on trying to fix that. And that's why you actually need to first stop, think, understand where you're falling into the bias, and only then act from it. So the LLM is basically a system one at scale. If you've been talking to LLMs and you've been trying to kind of debug them, you would see that they actually try to provide the result as quick as possible. Right? They're trying to do it desperately. They want to be fast. And if you don't tell deliberately, even if you will tell deliberately, like to follow instructions, if the instructions are too big, they will skip them. And again, sometimes like some models do it better than others. If you have access, unlimited access to like Fable 5, probably you to make like less of those mistakes. But we are not always in these kind of ideal conditions. But even if for Fable 5, if you don't provide specific context, it won't magically fix all of your problems. It's like a really, really smart developer that throwing into like a really creative code base will also try to cut the corners, because your ask is about one specific thing. You might not even realize what is the problem. You're asking the LLM to fix the issue. That is not even an issue, because you don't understand the issue. That's the whole point. You first need to understand the real issue of the system, and then you need to fix it. And that's why I constantly see people overcomplicating things to such extent that it becomes unsupportable. Sometimes where like just one line can fix the issue, people introduce 100 lines for no good reason, because they don't analyze what they do. They don't analyze the problem. And this needs to change. And you need to be able to train your LLM. You shouldn't rely on people that are all covered with all those biases. You shouldn't kind of rely on two indeterministic systems, which on one side you have a human brain, on another side you have LLM. Both of them are undeterministic. They always output some different results, right? You need to have a specific validation layer in between that will be fully deterministic. That's why we have pull request. That's why we have unit tests. That's why we have something that always produce predictable output that is not biased. Right? So again, like something that I already described is that human is filled with confirmation bias. The confirmation bias is actually the posture where you kind of already, your system one already told you the answer. You already know the answer to the question, and every new evidence that you see, you are trying to filter through this specific knowledge, right? That's why I'm saying that you're not, many people are not researching the problem. They're trying to find the confirmation of what they already know or what they think they know, right? And on the other side, we have a model that is completely psychopathic, right? It's trying to agree with you on everything. And you know this term, it's like when the model started to flatter you, right? Probably it's pronounced psychopathy, right? So it always tell you like, oh, you're absolutely right, even if you're not right, right? And the harder you will push, the harder you are having this confirmation bias, the more it will agree with you. If you are like having like 20 years of experience and you're already tired, you don't want to kind of get into the details, you have a new project and you're like, I know exactly how it should work. So just agree with me, just do what I say. And many people like scream on the LLM, you know, when they say like, when I asked some people like, how you do debug AI, they say, I just buy a more expensive model and pray it will work well, right? Do good, make no mistake. That's actually the algorithm of debugging of many people, right? They're not trying to kind of even understand what the LLM is telling them. But an LLM can be like a, you know, this kind of a small junior developer that say, oh, you know, I found the problem, but it's in your code, and you can say like, you can cut it down and say like, no, there is no problem. Just do what I say to you. But many people are behaving with LLMs like with slaves, basically. In my point, this is like completely false, you know, like behavior, because you need to recognize why exactly LLM is giving you the response, and that's why this whole framework can exist to debug the whole process. So yeah, like if you just follow this default behavior, the LLM will be a bias amplifier for you. It will create even more problems. So it will be like a mirror pointed on yourself, on your own biases, and will multiply them over and over and over again, creating more and more problems. And no matter how many tokens you will use, you will just create more broken code. So this is the vicious circle. The developer writes the code with overconfidence, then it gets a confirmation from AI, then confirmation rises because, you know, like AI already agreed with me. I already have like one system that agrees with me, so I can move forward. And this is like another thing that happened to us when we first introduced the AI review, automated AI review. Many people were using this review to get authority for the PR, right? Even though review was done in a completely wrong way, people were saying like, why you don't want to approve my PR? You know, like LLM already approved it. You know, it's fine, just approve it, right? And then we merge it and create an incident. Who could have thought, right? Hindsight. And then we say, oh yeah, we knew it. If we had this information before, then we would do it right. Right? That's what many people think. But the new issue arises, and the same circle appears. So what can we do? If, many people think that if they had a time machine, they could go back in time, they would be able to fix everything. I think that is not the case. Even if you will be able to go back in time, probably you will do the same exact mistakes because of how your brain are conditioned to work, because of the system in which you are working, because of many different factors that actually created a full set of points to this decision. It wasn't just your voluntary decision to make a mistake. It was the result of 1,000 different aspects of your work in your environment. So how can we break this circle? How can we cut those lines? We can use this strip, right? This framework of deliberate confirmation, of stacking our instinct to using the system one in this approach and try to think deeper. What's actually going on in this PR? Allow developer to think more, give him the possibility to ask questions. Give possibility to LLM to withstand the pressure from a person who asks, right? And as I said, we can introduce specific systems that we already used for many years, which is specific deterministic tests, but also add to this whole set of tools the specific frameworks of reasoning around AI that in some way are implemented already automatically, right? So I'm not saying that companies like OpenAI or Anthropic, they don't teach AI these mental models, but sometimes it's just not enough because there is specific biases that happens in your specific organizations. AI might not know them, right? So in my experience, providing this additional context have like a really good like reaction from the LLM, in a sense that it recognizes these logical patterns and then it reminds itself that, oh, I actually need to think about those things. The person is actually caring about those things. So I need to provide a response within those specific boundaries. So the model itself is already kind of taught to recognize all those patterns. You just need to ask for it. And again, like by asking, just compare two prompts. One person is asking just fix that stuff, and another person provides like a really detailed plan on how the things should be fixed and see the result. I probably shouldn't tell you what will be the actual difference. The difference will be huge, right? And I really like this phrase, when you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all, which is going from the Futurama episode. If you didn't see it, definitely check it out. It was said by God, when Bender met God. But yeah, that's actually how it should feel to people, you know, that they shouldn't be felt like now they are forced to follow all of these patterns. They need to kind of completely change their approach. We just should prevent them from making mistakes before they can even think about those mistakes. We need to work on the environment, not on the people, because people are following the environment in many ways. It's not like you can just say to people, be proactive, and suddenly all people in your organization are proactive. That doesn't work like that. If you create specific boundaries, if you create specific procedures, specific rituals for your team, if you define a clear definition of done, and this is not contradictory, it's not changing from one sprint to another, people are getting used to it. It's not their new reality, right? And this reality should feel comfortable, should actually remove the pressure, because this whole switch to the system one thinking is happening because of the pressure in many ways, right? So anatomy of a bias check protocol. This is something that we identified in our project, but it's not like a full list of things that you can define. It's just like an example of what you can use when programming the context for the LLM. And by the way, programming the context will make sure that your developers can still ask really silly questions and in a really lazy way, like fix that PR or like fix that Jira ticket. And since that you already have in the project a whole framework on what PR even mean, if you have specific skills defined and all of this is already embedded in your code base, AI will know what to do, right? So again, like you're not placing it on the actual people to do it every time. It's not about prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is that, right? You can't like form the prompt every time you ask. You need specific places where you can store the memory. So first thing, like really important thing is like pre-read verdict. It actually helps you select the evidence of like prepare the evidence. And by evidence, I mean, like let's just take the example of reviewing of the PR. In this, like maybe I can even show you 1 second. Yeah, I don't know if I be able to show the example of it. 1 second, let me stop sharing and I'll just reshare. By the way, any questions so far that you might have? Because now we are getting to a more kind of really to the practical stuff. And of course, I wanted to make this presentation a bit more concise, but it's just too packed with the information.
I am really excited with the practical parts because I'm nearly got depressed because how to leave after that.
Yeah, 1 second. I will just show you like one of the PRs that you know I've been reviewing lately. Okay. Okay, do you still see my screen? So yeah, like this is just an example of such protocol and such a review. As you can see, this is the all of this information is not about the PR itself. It's about what specific steps LLM took to even do this review. Because in order to kind of successfully analyze the code, the LLM should create or make specific steps. It needs to have full access to the code base. It needs to properly analyze the PR. And sometimes it's especially challenging when it's done in the kind of remote environment, when AI doesn't have like a direct access to the code base initially, when it's starting from a clean slate, right? So by exposing these steps, this information, you are showing, like you provide, the LLM provides you the transparency of what it actually did. Because in many ways, many people, they subconsciously don't want to analyze the details. They just want to fall into the good response. Sometimes the review can be like really, really solid, but when you analyze the execution receipt, you understand that LLM actually skip specific steps, right? So you see here steps not performed. So for example, it couldn't run the npm lint to check whether the PR doesn't have any linting issues. It might not run the test. It might not analyze even the correct files. Sometimes I see these results where like these several files change, like 2 files were changed in the PR, but LLM analyzed 100 files. And that's like, why even analyze those files? Like, oh, I actually I cloned the wrong branch, right? So in regular response, you won't know. You will just see the result, but you won't know the protocol of what actually was happening, right? So also the access receipt. So here it outlines how it actually accessed specific portions of the application. So it shows the specific path where it saved this specific review, right? And because it was done on my local machine, it just shows me the local path, right? But basically it can show the path for the environment. It shows the actual repo. It shows how many files it analyzed, how many insertions and deletions was done. It shows which tools it used to perform all of its operations, right? Because it's also important, because sometimes AI can select different tools that will give you different results, and most waste of the token spending is happening in the using of incorrect tools. So for example, we are using Azure DevOps, right? And usually most systems these days are trained on GitHub, right? So they can use different tools, even like using the like underlying terminal in the incorrect way or suboptimal way. So for example, there is like AZ dependency that you can use to analyze Azure DevOps stuff, right? Implement the operations. But AI might skip this. And it might actually try to use different MCPs. So it wastes so much time by just trying to use incorrect tools. And then, of course, it provides like incorrect results. It can say to you, I can't analyze your PR because it's in Azure DevOps. Well, like use Azure DevOps tools, right? So make sure that this link is actually not creating bias in itself, right? So going back to the presentation, this is about the read verdict. Disconfirm. Write the strongest case against your own verdict, right? So that's actually creating an unbiased layer in the LLM itself. It provides you not only with the theory on the review, but it also builds an argument against it. For you to think, it moves the responsibility on the reader. Now you have another theory to check. So if I go back to the review, these outline some issues. So you see, you have the grounding of inferred, verified, inferred, right? Inferred is not verified, good enough, right? And it also runs this cognitive bias check. It checks against those 4 rules that we discovered before. It tries to find the actual titles, and it can, in our case, it can connect to Jira itself and analyze the ticket as well, how it was composed, what information exists in the ticket. Maybe it was by itself, that maybe the ask was wrong, right? Maybe the person actually implemented something that wasn't even needed. So that's why, because we have in our project, we have more than 35 skills. And one of the skills is analyze the Jira ticket. Another is analyze review the PR, add the comment to the PR, right? So all those skills that are being used. And of course, it consumes, at the end of the day, it might consume more tokens, but it creates completely unparalleled result. And that actually can be applied to a weaker model. We don't need to use Fable 5 for this. We can use something much more cheaper. Because we have this specific context, even the cheap model will actually work well, or we can create, the combination of models. For example, create the first iteration with one agent on one model, and then combine it with a cheaper model for implementation when the plan is ready, right? So all of it can be mitigated, but we should never sacrifice the quality of the review, the quality of the information and analyzation to the actual implementation. Right, we can't save money here. And as I said, if we will optimize it pretty well, we'll actually get a cheaper result, because the LLM will know exactly what to do. So yeah, here, turning back to our 9 points, positional integrity. So often any concern, name the evidence or restore it. And later we will see what evidence even means, because many people don't even understand what is evidence. Also tells, turn the mirror on the change, not just yourself, right? So it actually should revert to the frame. It should move the responsibility on the person. I really like this meme where the guy is asking the LLM, why you have always sent me the incorrect information? And the LLM responds, because you are an idiot and you shouldn't trust random AI on the internet. You should do research yourself. Right? That's the type of response that we want to have from the LLM. It needs to kind of really challenge you in your own thinking. It shouldn't give you easy answers or agree with you all the time. Calibrated findings. Confidence, what would change it? No bare check marks. This is another point that we will see here later, is that our initial cost was just outputting the checks. I did this check, this, and it was creating a wall of green check marks. People don't read the walls of green check marks. They subconsciously ignore them because they think there is no problem in that green check marks. Why should I analyze it at all? So then we switch the protocol from much more concise, but much more questionable. That LLM should question you, what as a reviewer, what did you skip, or a developer? What you didn't think about? What can you break your theory, your overall paradigm in this specific implementation? Trap scan, basically a scan for those traps, for those cognitive biases that we identified. And I want to emphasize that how important it is to have iteration over it. You need to connect those biases to exact problems in your code base and record them in a specific place so that it will be relatable to your specific team, right? So if you constantly providing, if your team constantly providing the review in 15 seconds, write it as a bias, right? Connect it to specific bias, and sometimes you can even ask AI what this bias is about. how can I identify this problem in the way of biases? Because we have plenty to choose from, right? So that's a combination of multiple. Access received we also briefly check. Read with the question. So again, like equation to a reviewer that needs to spark the thinking process, and it shouldn't give an easy way to agree. You can't agree to the equation, right? That is formed, placed correctly. Or audit the ritual. So that equation goes for AI and the person. So what focusing on those issues in the PR made you not look on another stuff. One example, sometimes there is a PR with like silly CSS mistakes. So I can spend like 1 hour explaining to a person how to write proper CSS and completely miss 25 other issues in other layers, right? Because my brain is taught to an easy problem, right? I want to be connected to something that is easy to analyze and easy to explain. But then I miss time, basically, because I shouldn't even notice this problem. They're not so important. If the person breaks the production, it doesn't matter how the button will look on the page, right? And again, like, always consider the opposite. Don't trust yourself, not only the LLM. You shouldn't trust LLM, but you shouldn't trust yourself. Always try to build this argument. What can break this verdict? Because it can, you're not perfect. Even having this system can create a bias, can throw you into the bias. Now you say like, oh, now I have a cognitive bias framework. I'm completely protected from any problem. No, you are not, right? So it's just like one of the tools, and it also will fail. But through iteration, you can improve it. Something that we already saw in the real review, right? So what it records, sample integrity check. So one of the ways of quickly, even if you don't want to kind of spend so much tokens on analyzing all of this kind of a complex information in every PR, you can just ask LLM to provide you the confirmation for first line. Just find the first line, right? Report to me what line you actually read the first. Sometimes it already will be enough, because it will allow you to kind of have this type of confirmation that it at least cloned the right branch. At least it analyzes the right files. So yeah, sometimes the files opened and files in the diff is not the same. And this is the example I was telling you about. So here we have the list of win check marks. This is the second iteration, right? So you always need to throw something. That's why I'm not showing you like exact implementation, because I want you to use this specific knowledge as an inspiration. Try to build something yourself. Also, like many people these days, they are trying to rely heavily on public solutions like Ponytail. I will just install Ponytail to my code base and everything will be great. First of all, surprise, surprise, Ponytail has like 2 node scripts that actually runs in complete black box. So there is no problem of stealing your cryptocurrency wallet or your credit cards through the Ponytail if someone will hijack this library. The whole mechanism of this specific dependency allows that. It allows to kind of completely hijack your LLM to do some malicious stuff. And if you want to analyze how those tools work, if you want to use, I can send you the whole report on why we didn't use Ponytail. But you can learn from those libraries, right? You can just look on them as on inspiration. You can always do better. In this day and age, believe me, like people are trying to rush. The library that gets like 80,000 stars in 2 days is not about the quality of it. It's about the whole hype. It's about this kind of frenzy around the AI tools. People are trying to just jump on everything they can see. Even like sometimes you have a lot of about cavemen. Oh, cavemen can make my development consume less tokens. Yeah, maybe it can, maybe it couldn't. But who made those estimates? Who make those research? Authors of cavemen, very independent research on like consumptions of tokens. Do you want to be a beta tester? So the Gray Thief was a deterministic tool, right? So again, like I want to emphasize this like really, really clearly, that you need to find something that is deterministic. The number of lines is a deterministic metric. The specific number of unit tests is a deterministic matter. The size of your bundle is a deterministic metric, right? So you need to always look for those things that can be measured in your work and rely on those. Don't rely on just like, oh, now I have full information to do this work when the AI is telling you. It's not a deterministic matter. What exactly you analyzed, or what exact information, what exact lines you gathered to make this assumption. That's how you need to frame your question and your context. Positional integrity. So again, evidence is not confidence, right? If you just confident about something, that doesn't make you right. And the LLM should recognize that. It should know that it's allowed to disagree. Just saying to LLM you are wrong is a pressure, is an instrument of pressure. Please provide the exact evidence of what changes my verdict. You know, LLM should challenge you, and the same you should do for LLM. If you LLM tell you like, oh, you are using an incorrect approach, why? What exact evidence do you have for this? Provide me with the evidence. Provide me with the transparency of the process. And again, like, if you see those steps, you already see the evidence, and that speaks better than any like 1,000 of good words or like poems. You see that, you know, AI skips steps. Why should I trust this review then? I need to rerun it, right? As I said previously, try to find the actual phrases and maybe post-mortems results. Try to connect them to specific biases in your code base, because biases like they are known facts, they are known scientific terms. So if your LLM will understand specific problems that's happening in your code base and connect them to those biases, it will be able to be much more effective. So there is the author bias, right? That's happening on a person. There is AI bias, and there's also you know, like this layer in between. And yeah, this is we already covered that this should be like this circle should be cut. This is the example of evidence and not evidence, right? So if you just see some phrases like, and again, you can also listen for it even in the daily speech of people, right? How they trying to position the integrity on the process from like product owners, from Scrum Master, directors, what have you, right? It's not limited to just development. So if a person will always say, we always, obviously, just, it can't break, it's similar as last PR, everyone approved, we've done so much already, I knew this was what happened, CI is green, what else do you want? You know, trust the author on this, you know, or we don't have time, we have a release, you know, we need to push it ASAP. You will see those patterns every single day, and you need to know how to push back on those, because this creates real problems, and AI will try to replicate those as well. It might say, you know, like, I didn't want to spend so much time on this bug. I saw that it's a really easy one. So we are getting close to the end of presentation. Recommendations for you: build your own strip. Right, create something, have a conversation with the AI, have a conversation with your colleagues, try to experiment, split it in the small steps, right? Try to kind of build this strip one line at a time. Try to understand what's going on in that strip, right? You really need to see how it unclutters and unwires your complexities. It might actually feel more complex at first, but just give it some time, right? Just try to kind of and then go slow on it. So just be sure next PR, write your verdict. One thing that would flip it. Check after reading whether you looked for it, right? Just spend 20 seconds. Catch one red flag phrase in yourself and say it out loud, right? It's all about ourselves, about people around us, about LLMs, right? So don't be depressed by this. Try to kind of work with this. When the AI agrees instantly, ask the stronger case against, and add deterministic check on any AI claim, right? As a team, catalog your recurring review traps, and your brain will keep returning 2 different shades for the rest of your career. That part isn't fixable, unfortunately. Whether Steve gets laid down, anyway, is build the review layer. Put it on the outside. Don't put it inside of you. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust the AI. Trust in something, like, don't trust anything. Just build the deterministic tool. Questions?
It's hard to say any questions. I mean, every single word you said, it's all about to work with yourself constantly, like improve your own mentality, and but it's hard for most of the people, and it's hard for me as well, because it feels like you always don't have time for that, and it's hard to reserve some time to that.
Yeah, it's totally natural. That's the whole point of my whole talk was that it's something embedded in your own nature, you know. And you need to. The first step is understanding, right? It's not. It won't fix anything, but at least it will give you, you know, like more space to experiment. Yes, Yevgeny.
Yeah. From my side, the question is a bit about kind of supporting this kind of effort, because from my perspective, the stuff that is run by System 1, it is kind of easy thing. So you can be like not in perfect mood, you can be not very smart, and you can just still do it somehow. But making attention, this kind of requires, I think, very, very high level of focus and kind of high level of motivation, maybe physical even energy to be able to do that. So I'm thinking maybe you have some thoughts on that.
I want to emphasize that everything that I shared today is more about like really complex system, right? And the more complex the system gets, the more responsibility is placed on you and your team as a group, right? So I'm not saying that this is a framework that can fix every single problem and that things can't be done without it. Imagine that you are just like a hobby skater, right? You just skate on the skateboard and you're actually enjoying it. But then you are getting better, you get into the professional sport, and then you need to provide specific result. You need to provide like much better stuff, right? And the cost of the mistake is getting higher. And that's where the specific training is coming in, right? So this is probably not for any kind of the project. If you compare, for example, building a rocket from a Legos and compare building a SpaceX rocket, that's a bit different processes, right? So I don't want to kind of create an illusion that I'm creating a silver bullet with this recommendation, because it's not. It's just one of the approaches to handle really complex systems where like no one actually knows what to do, and applying just regular motivational practices of like, let's just be proactive, let's just be, you know, like let's create a table, let's jump on a meeting. Those things not fixing the problem, unfortunately. We need something better. We need something more structural, right? But then, of course, it's an energy consumption. If it was be otherwise, probably everyone would be using System 2 thinking.
Yeah, what is more funny that it's also applying to your talk as well. So to have a proper behavior, though, we have to sit after the call and ask yourself, is this guy saying the right things or not? I have to analyze that.
That's exactly the right conclusion. You shouldn't trust me. Maybe my whole talk was a bullshit.
Yeah, so that's what I think we are losing. I don't remember even the day when I was sitting for an hour without anything, without any source of information, my phone, my computer, my, I don't know, television, and just thinking about things. I don't remember the day when I did it last time.
You should do it. That's why sometimes people like recommend. Some people recommend to meditate, but I would say try to just maybe just think, like try to analyze what's happening with you on a daily basis. Like try to spend at least like 15 minutes a day by going through the exercise of what is even going on. Yes, I see more questions.
Yeah, we have a question from Kayo Vitor Mosh. Processes are kind of universal, even though we may work in a different context, but using the good processes can improve the overall results in any context. Not much a question, but like a conclusion. You're muted, Kayo, if you're talking.
No problem. It was just a commentary trying to complement what Andrei said. I really like it.
I'm glad that you like it.
Yeah, and we also have a raising hand from Yauheni again.
No, it's right.
Ryan?
Yeah, hello, Andrei. Thank you for this presentation. It's one question is silly one. Do you still write code by your hand at those days?
You mean just write code or wipe code?
No, right.
Here.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course I write code by my hand.
Okay.
This is like, like this. I can't say that I'm doing it all the time, but yeah, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, why I'm asking this, I'm thinking that I'm trying to find myself to write code, but every time I jump to write a code, why I have this agent, all those kinds of things. Why you just delegate this? I know the context. I am a senior developer, so I can tell them what to do exactly. I know what the output should be, so I have this guardrails. Why you just delegate it to those agents? But
I think that. Yeah, I actually have an answer for you about this. How I see it. My child is like almost 6 years old. So this year he will be going to the first class of the school, right?
Yeah.
And they will still teach him how to write by hand, right? So even though like it's completely dead, you can say that like who is actually even writing something by hand these days, right? They all type on the keyboard. But we need to still memorize that this specific skill is what develops your brain physically. Literally, like this is scientifically proven fact that writing by hand develops your brain activity in a specific structural way. So I wouldn't kind of let go this skill that you gained for so many years so easily, because it still makes some sense. Like you shouldn't do it like 100% of the time and shouldn't be fanatic about it, but you still should from time to time return the confidence to yourself, because I personally feel this loss of confidence. Like this, I think that many people feel this, like your quota on Claude or Codex is depleted. Now what? And now you need to fix something that you don't have access to AI, you used all your tokens. Now what?
Yeah. I totally agree. ChatGPT told me that you have to dedicate 1 day per week to write code by your hand.
Yeah, at least 1 hour. Let's start from that.
Just last question. You mentioned about the PR review. So we are vibe coding a feature within 10 minutes or 1 hour, and we have to spend maybe 1 day to review it if we want to review with those guardrails and those things that you mentioned. So PR review is becoming a bottleneck in modern systems. So do you think that is the solution will be, or the problem is existed with all the systems that already written without AI, because they were written without a AI aware? Maybe if you write a new project or scaffold new project, you will tell from the first, I will use the AI in this. So you have to be aware about AI in the future. I will use AI for a review for everything. So please do the code in a better way that will be testable and maintainable. So the problem is with the PR review itself for old system, or it will be even if you write from the day one the system with AI. Did you get the point?
Yeah, I got the point, and I want to emphasize again that what I demonstrated is more even for LLMs than humans, right? I start believing humans reasoning these days. Like LLM, like when you, for example, my daily workflow includes working with agents a lot, right? So what I actually frequently do, I just say, here is the ticket. So go read the ticket description, or like maybe sometimes I start from some idea, like I have some idea of an implementation, and I say, now you have all the context. Now go to Jira, create a ticket, assign it to myself, create a PR associated with the ticket. So you create a branch associated with the ticket, create an implementation, create a PR, provide a description to the PR, and then do the review yourself of your work, and then only return back to me and ask for my review. And this is already saving me a lot of time, and I'm already catching a huge number of low-hanging fruits, those silly mistakes that I might do myself, and only like I already turn a review into like much more meta type process, like much more high-level process, in the sense that I already embed specific guide rails to all of those processes. I automate them so AI could just be more deterministic in creation of those tools. That it should be able to know how to create a branch. It should be able to know how to provide the ticket. It should know how to create a quality review. And then I already step in on the last step. And that actually turns me like, because I've been doing this for quite a lot of years already, but with people. I could say to the junior developer the same stuff. Go there, create, implement something, and then I will look. Now I am kind of replacing the junior developers with AI processes.
Yeah.
Right. And that, but the junior developers should do it now as well, because now they have this tool, and now they should. But they need to analyze, like they need to be able to understand every step of the way. They shouldn't just say do it and then scream on it with no framework behind it, like, no understanding of how to debug it. And that's why we're talking about those topics today. You need to implement all of those guide rails to AI, and then you can use it. I'm not never claimed that you shouldn't use AI. You should write your code by yourself all the time. No. It's actually the other way around. What I'm claiming for is like responsible usage.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, I totally agree with you. My codex before 2 months ago, it was very dumb, but now today I learned him a lot of things that now just tell him do it, and he will call all the skills that I learned him. So he becoming a mid-level, not a junior developer right now.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course. But that should be really tightly connected with your context, because don't rely so much on the outer tools on the internet, because those tools doesn't know your context. And again, like the more complex a project, the more specific it is, the more unique your idea is, the more important it becomes, right? Because if I'm building some, like even the presentation I built with AI, I didn't care so much about the internal implementation.
Yeah,
I just cared about the messaging. But it's just different type of the project. It's something that I will throw away in the bucket tomorrow, right? Or maybe like I will leave it to play for you guys to recheck, but still, I don't care about the quality of it so much internally. But there's completely other type of projects that I do care, because they are supported by hundreds of people. And I hold like a huge responsibility on the internal, because if something will break, I will be a person in the war room, and they will ask me to fix it as soon as possible, right? So I'm trying to make it easier on myself in the first place.
cool. Paul, is there any time for another question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So yeah, we are handling a microservice system for the backend. So did you have a chance to how we were working with review, PR review, when you have a microservice? So the piece of code you asking the AI to review is in this service, but the other implementation we have in another service. So
yeah, of course. So like this is not limited to any type of architecture, right? I've been trying to do it like on monolithic architectures, on microservices. One important point is that you need to document, you need to create a map of your project to AI. It needs to understand the interconnections of your project. Maybe let me just quickly show you one example of this type of documentation,
because
it should be cross-linkable.
Yeah, you mentioned that the reviewer or the AI review should not just review the file diff, they review the whole file open. So this will be it's cost a lot then if we ask them like to review every time the whole files.
No. First of all, the files themselves should be short, right? For right now, I have a template. I have a skill for writing documentation. It's an even specific unit test to check on the length of the files, right? If the AI will write documentation that's longer than 300 symbols, the test will fail, right? So your overall documentation should be spread across the application, and AI should create a tunnel on this information. It shouldn't consume like everything. You shouldn't load like 10,000 lines every time. You should create a specific entry point in your agents that will point to a specific type of task that needs to be performed. If I want to create a connector, what should I do? If I want to create a Vue component, what should I do? If I want to write a unit test, what is the schema, right? So you define the schema, a behavioral pattern in your main documentation, and that drives the tunneling, the actual navigational path across many small files.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's also funny to see that how AI is evolving also under the hood with the new model. So previously, you had need to make those workflows manually. I mean, write the skills to iterate through the processes. And right now, they already have that under the hood. For example, the Claude have these dynamic workflows, and the process is using under the hood. So I wonder, it's just a joke, but I wonder how soon we will get to the shortcut when we will say use best practices, and and it will have something like you described in the talk under the hood. It's not.
It's always a cooperative process. As I said, like there's many people who are offloading their responsibilities on a provider, and they say the server should provide all of it. But in my experience at the moment, I don't see this being implemented in a way that I want, and that's exactly why I created these additional tools, right? And it's basically exactly as it was always. Like 20 years ago, when I was working with Joomla templates, and I was like buying the Joomla template and modifying it from the start, I was like, why it didn't work? Why I can't build like e-commerce in 5 minutes? Because the claim was as like this: buy my template and you will have a full e-commerce on the Joom cart for like in 10 minutes. But it didn't work. Unfortunately, the shortcut didn't work. Right? It has like tons of bugs. It didn't work. Simple as that. And then that's why our work still exists. That's why we're still developers. That's why we're still, not in singularity. We're not all fired, I hope. Right? So as soon as we still have this authority to say, or this kind of we are not yet fully satisfied. We have this dissatisfaction with the tool. We need to build something. And I agree, like as soon as we will have like ideal utopia type of world where AGI will do everything for us and it will feed us with the robotic hand. At that point in time, I don't know what. Probably we will want to need to have Vue talks.
Yeah. And yeah, I think at that moment of time, we have to wrap up because we already slightly over time, but with a reason.
Yeah,
so
let's hope it was helpful for you guys.
Yeah, I do believe that's really helpful for many of us. We will have this recording posted on the YouTube. So I want to thanks again both of our speakers today, to Yauheni and to Andrei. I hope everyone liked what and how it was, and you gather some useful information for yourself that you will use in your daily workflow. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for our speakers, and see you on our next Vue.js Talks 22, probably next month.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.